This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
A warm welcome to all our viewers from all around the world. So we're currently watching a few hippos that are coming up now and again to breathe. It's a pretty warm day here in Africa, and I want everyone to come and join us as we take you on this virtual safari. So for this afternoon, I'm going to be your guide, and with me on the camera is Owen. But just to introduce myself, so I'm Nikki here from, as we mentioned earlier, from andBeyond in Ngala, and Owen with me on the camera. So just earlier on, we came past this particular waterhole, and what I want to do is just want to refocus our attention on these hippos that are right here in the water. Now, earlier on, as we arrived, they were lying down on the bank, just on the side, and of course, as soon as they caught a little bit of, or they started getting aware of what was going on around them, they eventually got up and started moving into the water, and now they're in the water. Only later on, as soon as it starts cooling down, to move out and possibly go and feed off on the grass. Now, as we are chatting, there's actually an elephant on its way. Now, I'm going to ask Owen. So, Owen, you see there's just right of where the hippos are, there's a big stump in the water, just off to our right. Now, if you look over that stump, so let's quickly focus on that, because I also need to try and direct where this elephant might be, and also try to spot it myself. So see where that branch is or that big dead tree is in the water? Now from there, slightly up to the right, there's two elephants that are slowly coming down to drink. You'll notice, just go a little bit left from there. They might actually, if we just give it a minute or two, we might find these elephants coming down. Now, this is an exciting part of the afternoon, because often, if elephants are thirsty, they might even eventually start picking up the pace to get to the water. So these are two bulls. It's nice and warm. Chances also, even with the drink, there's always a chance they might come down to swim. Now, it does look like the two have just met up together. It could be only a couple of bulls that are together. Could be a bigger herd. We're not too sure. I think once they get a slight bit closer, we'll be able to see that. But just look at the movement. If it is two elephant bulls, I can just imagine they've probably been feeding quite a bit. There's a lot of big trees around, so they've gone for the leaves. Possibly some of the trees that have started bearing fruit a bit later on in the year, probably collected a bit of fruit and maybe some grass, and now on their way down to water. See that one that's constantly picking up his trunk? So basically just smelling. Now it might be the water that this elephant is smelling, or there's maybe something in between the water and that elephant, and that's probably what's picking up the trunk. It could be the rest of the herd that could be behind us. But let's see, that one elephant is now, you can just see the head moving past there's a couple of trees in the way, just coming out of that now. There's actually three elephants. But how amazing is this? So myself and Owen said, all right, what is our game drive plan for this afternoon? We said, all right, maybe we could look at some of the smaller things, and as it starts cooling down, we could possibly look at lions and leopard, possibly some of the other predators as well. And then one of the other things was maybe there's a chance of elephants around the water. So we decided to come down to this waterhole to have a look. Just imagine if they decide to go for a little swim. Marlo, with the hippos, they normally try and avoid the elephants. I've seen it before where elephants, a whole herd has moved into a waterhole and all the hippos moved out of it. they don't really find. I'm sure, like if a hippo is injured and can't get away, like if an elephant bull, especially a young bull, is trying to push it off, there might be where the hippo will try and defend itself. But normally, when an elephant moves in, the hippo would move away, and you don't really see a lot of encounters. I'm sure there has been cases recorded of that, but to my knowledge, or what I've seen, I've just never seen that before. Just notice with these elephants, you can imagine how thirsty they must be, and look at how they're pushing their trunk into the water. Now, what's really important, kids, to remember with elephants is they can't breathe through their, they can't breathe through their mouth, but they do through their trunk. So they basically suck up all the water, hold it into their mouth, and then blow all that water into their mouth, and then they drink it from there. But as I said, it is nice and warm. You can even see with the light on them. Notice all the shadows, especially on the side, behind the ears, in between the legs, on the back. So it's a good sign to say that the sun is still quite high, meaning that it is nice and warm. So who knows? Sometimes when they do drink like this, they might venture a little bit deeper and deeper. That's what I'm hoping for, to see them swimming this afternoon. But let's keep our fingers crossed, and I'm hoping for that. But also, kids, if there's any, for all our viewers, if you have any question, please send them in. Beatrice H4, I think the hippos do mind, especially if there's not too much water around. But I think for now, there's just so much water around, and they're happy to share that. I think once it starts getting when it starts getting drier and possibly there will be less and less water, I think the hippos would also feel the stress of a lot of animals drinking that. But there's not much a hippo can do, especially if an elephant comes down and starts drinking a hippo's home, or the home at which it lives in, the water. But of course, with hippos, I do know they love sharing that. Just see how those elephants are moving into the water. Ella, 4 years old, you asked a very good question with if lions would ever eat something like an elephant. Now, there are places where lions do hunt elephants and eat elephants, but it won't be elephants as big as these ones are. So if you look at them, they're fairly big. One of them would weigh a couple of tons. So unless there's a young baby that gets separated from the rest of the herd, or maybe even one of these that eventually gets such a big injury that they would die, it's very unlikely that the lion would hunt a big elephant like this. However, there are prides that are known to catch baby elephants. And there's a place in Botswana that's really well renowned for it. It's called Savuti, and there's a pride of 34 lions that mainly specialize in hunting elephants. But just look at it. When they move through the water, have you noticed how they just drag their front feet through the water, maybe just to help cool themselves down? So I don't think it's going to be too long. We're going to spend some time here, and hopefully there's a good chance that they might go into the water. As I mentioned, I really want to see them swimming. But I think while we do that, let's send you across to Tswalu Kalahari for the introduction.
It is fantastic having you all with us. I know I say that every time. I genuinely mean it. It is such a privilege having you along with us on these drives. Jean-Andre is always doing what he does best behind the camera there. I'm not quite sure what that is, and then I'm Dylan from Tswalu Kalahari. I just want to show you something. While we were driving in here, we saw this magnificent tree, and I just want to chat with you very, very briefly about these trees. We've seen them before many times on our drives. We've touched on them briefly. Camel thorn trees. But what I want to point out is not so much the species of the tree this time, or the ages, that kind of stuff. But kind of touching on the age, but I really want to chat with you about the importance of these very, very old trees. Now, when I say old, I have no idea how old this tree might be. It could be 200 years, it could be 400 years, it could be 500 years old. We don't know. But it certainly is, for this species in this area, a very old individual. But the factor that I want to point out here, and this is where it becomes really, the ecological role of these trees becomes very, very apparent and very important, is that yeah, you get a lot of young trees like this around, smaller ones, and they're all over here. They're scattered right through here. But when they start getting to this size, you start getting all these holes forming inside them. That could be from disease, it could be from fire, it could be from animal damage. There's any number of reasons. It could even be human activity in the past, maybe cutting branches off, who knows. But the fact remains is that you get these this incredible structural diversity on old growth trees. Now, old growth trees, I'm not necessarily referring to only the ones here at Tswalu, but anywhere, whether it's our colleagues down at Phinda, Djuma, Ngala, those places. It could be redwoods in the United States. Old growth trees are critically important for biodiversity. And you get things, once this tree starts getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and then they start getting all these nooks and crannies in. Look at the spider webs over here, for instance. Okay, I'm going to stick my hand, I don't recommend sticking your hand into any holes like this normally, but there's seed pods that have been eaten out by tree rats. And there's actually some droppings in there as well. Holes, and then you can actually see all the nesting material of the tree rats inside there. So, and there's termites as well going up there. So there, immediately we've got evidence of at least one species of spider. This is called a hermit spider. There's tree rats, there's termites, and as you move further up the tree, you will see there are bird nests as well on these outer branches. So there's 5 species already. If we follow the line of these branches all along here, you get a number of different little things over here. Here is a cocoon of some kind of moth. Okay, that one over there is it's an old one. It's not in use anymore, but that's a moth. So there's a 6th species. And then the other really cool thing is look at the spider web, that egg sac. That is from a brown button spider. So there's 7 species just like that. There are bird nests, old evidence of woodpeckers or barbets on this tree. So there's 8 species in the blink of an eye. And that is not spending a lot of time on the tree. That's just walking around doing a very, very quick sort of inventory of what's actually using this tree as we're standing here. There's 8 species plus the tree itself, and that's the tip of the iceberg. So, we're just going to keep on moving, but I just wanted you to give a little bit of thought to old growth trees as opposed to just seeing trees.
Good afternoon and welcome to Saturday afternoon here at Djuma Private Game Reserve, where a little lion is looking at us from the top of a termite mound. My name is James Hendry. Hello. And on camera today, making his world premiere, is Niels. Give us your thumb, Niels. There it is. Let's go back to the lion over there. Now, I don't know if you were with us on our morning safari, everybody, but these lions of the Nkuhuma Pride were hunting buffalo in this area, and I just came to have a look to see if perhaps they had succeeded in taking down a poor old beef, but I don't think that they have. And so there's a youngster, only one youngster that I can see on top of that termite mound. I suspect the rest of the pride are spread out around in the shade around about that termite mound, and the buffalo have probably headed off towards the north. So I don't think we'll hang around here for too long, given the temperature. It's a lovely warm afternoon, probably around about 24 or 5 degrees Celsius. And we'll head off towards the east and continue the seemingly endless search for Tundi the leopardess and her cub, young male cub. And we'll find lots of other things on the way, no doubt. He looks like a restless young fellow. Doesn't like to have an afternoon sleep like the rest of the pride. And just remember, if you would like to talk to us, please do so using the email address kidsquestions@wildearth.tv. That's kidsquestions@wildearth.tv. For the first 45 minutes of this drive, the questions must come from people under the ages of 18, or as I sometimes like to say, those who are pretending to be under the ages of 18. And you can also use the comment section on YouTube if you so desire. But there will be priority given to kidsquestions@wildearth.tv. We're going to head on from here. I don't think these lions are going to be moving around much. We're now going to go across to a giraffe with someone called Mike, who I don't know. Well, hello Mike and hello Giraffe.
Welcome to a hot and sunny Pridelands Conservancy. And yes, we have a beautiful giraffe that's taking advantage of the shade in order to stay nice and cool this afternoon. Very, very well camouflaged, as you can see. Right, my name is Michael Anderson, welcome, and behind the camera is Gert. And yes, we're going to be showing you around this beautiful place for the next 3 hours. And these giraffes are just taking advantage of the shade right now, enjoying it whilst it's nice and sunny. Eating on what looks like a very, very spiky thorn type tree. Let me just have a quick look with my binoculars. It looks like it could be a knobthorn tree. Yes, indeed. I believe it is a knobthorn tree. So this giraffe has got amazing, amazing adaptations. If you look at its thick lips, look at it. Busy chomping away at those leaves, and there's lots of spiky thorns all over there. But the lips are very, very well padded against those thorns. And look at the tongue popping out every now and again to pluck little leaves off the end of the branches. It's funny. I remember something that someone told me a while back. They said, why do giraffes have such small mouths but such a long neck? And I didn't know how to answer this question. They said, because a little goes a long way. So you see when they pluck those tiny little leaves, and every now and again, if we get a better view of this giraffe, you'll see the neck as it swallows. All that leaves goes all the way down the neck. But look how well camouflaged they are. For such huge, huge animals, they are surprisingly well camouflaged. If they don't move, now you see when they move, all of a sudden you can see them nicely. Our eyes are well adapted to seeing movement. Oh, look at that, moving out into the open for us. Just nibbling here, nibbling there. You know what's also quite interesting is the wind is very, very gently blowing into the face of that giraffe, into our face as well. We're facing the same way, and they're moving up into the wind. There's an interesting reason for that, and they say that trees can defend themselves. I know people, I often don't understand how this all works, but apparently trees can send chemicals out to each other to let them know when there's something nibbling them, and then that makes their leaves taste horrible. And then they move on to the next tree, usually going into the wind, because those trees haven't yet heard the message. Look at this giraffe as it's looking around. You see those beautiful ears, how pale they are. That's how they can spot each other from distance. Right, so these giraffes are going to continue feeding here on these lovely thorny bushes. Look at that one. And we're going to send you over to Nikki, who's got some beautiful elephants, I believe. So I hope that you enjoy that whilst we enjoy these giraffes.
So we're just having such an amazing view of these elephants. So there's altogether 4 now. So initially there were 3, and then remember the 4th one joined up. And now there's one drinking just off to the right, and all the others are moving in the back. Now, they are pretty far off, but it's just such a nice silhouette because we're basically in between where they are in the sun, and so that's why there's quite a bit of shadow that's falling onto those elephants. But have a look. You'll notice this one is almost like cleaning the very top of the water. Maybe there's a bit of algae because of the wind's blowing in that direction, so it might be a lot of algae that's on top of the water, so it's just basically moving it to clear it off so he can put his trunk in and maybe get a bit cleaner water. Now, just left of him, the other ones are having a bit of fun. So they're taking some mud, so they're using their back or their front feet just to loosen a bit of the mud and also like turn it up and make it into like a very, almost like a pudding. And then from there on, they'll flick it onto their backs and cool themselves down. Even notice the one off to the right with the rays of sun on the side. You'll notice it looks like it's shining, and that's because of all the water. And just imagine now, after that, and there's a little breeze that blows, how nice it must be able to cool down those elephants. This is so nice to see. So Taylor, the elephants will, so the mud is also is to help cool them down. So you can imagine on a very warm day, if you're really hot, like you often jump into a swimming pool, you might go to the beach, jump in the water, and that helps to cool you down. Or even you take a nice ice cold shower. Now the same with the elephants. So by flicking the mud onto them, what it does, it creates like a very thin, cool layer, and then as the wind blows over it, or as they move those big ears, it helps to cool them down. Another reason why they might do that is you can imagine living in the bush, there could be quite a lot of ticks, or maybe any other parasites. So basically what happens is all these parasites that get stuck on the skin of the elephant, as soon as the mud hardens, they get trapped in the mud, and as the elephant goes and rubs up against a tree or maybe anything else, it helps to get rid of it. So those are quite a few reasons why they'll do that. You'll even notice the one on the right is actually taking and just throwing it onto his back, but having quite a bit of fun. Alex 5 and Nina 7, I do think that elephants need to learn how to swim. Often you'll notice if a waterhole is almost like too deep for a youngster to move through, the mom would always try her absolute best to move around wherever they can. But it's normally as elephants get a little bit older, they can't really swim like we can swim, or for example as a dog will swim in order use its feet in order to move across the water. However, they tend to walk through a particular area. So often with the little ones, whenever a mom walks through a deep area of a waterhole or maybe a river, you'll often see the baby would hold onto mom's tail, or it will walk but the trunk would be out of the water, almost like a snorkel, when they do move through deep areas. So I think what we're going to do from here is with these elephants, they're probably going to be doing this for maybe another 2 or 3 minutes. And then from there on, they'll start moving off. I think what we'll then do is carry on with our plan. But for now, we're going to just enjoy this for another minute or two. But while we do that, we're going to send you across to a giraffe that's apparently trying to feed off a very thorny tree.
Welcome back to Pridelands Conservancy. We are still with these beautiful group of giraffes that's here. And Gert's put a beautiful view of the mountains in the background there. What a picturesque scene. So this giraffe is eating from another very, very thorny tree called a buffalo thorn. I don't know if it's read the book. This is the buffalo's tree. And a giraffe thorn, the buffalo thorn. But look at that long nose and how it's able to push itself into the tree without hurting its eyes because of those sharp, spiky thorns. Because it's got hooked thorns and straight thorns. Look at those. Look at the tongue flicking out of its mouth, just plucking in the leaves there. And it's got long eyelashes as well, this giraffe. I don't know, you can see it so clearly, but they've got beautiful, dark, long, curved eyelashes, which are really good at protecting their eyes. There you go, nicely. Oh, beautiful. Look at the silhouette of those. I know, I wish I had eyelashes like that. Beautiful. And look at those ears, how they flick back and listen to what's behind it. So Nina had a good question about how much giraffes eat. Well, giraffes eat a lot. I can't tell you exactly how much, Nina, but what I do know is that they are moving and feeding the whole day. Often, if it gets really, really hot, you might see giraffes going into the shade and then they start doing something called ruminating. Oh, this one seems to be looking towards the other giraffes and now making its way down towards the area where they were walking. So when they ruminate, they take all the leaves that they've plucked during the day. Let me try and go back just a tiny bit more so we might be able to still see the giraffe. And they re-chew those leaves to get more nutrients. So they certainly don't have to eat as much as something like an elephant, which is a very large animal, also another very large animal, but they eat a lot. They eat for many, many hours a day. They only sleep for a couple of hours at the most per day. So the rest of the time they basically spend eating. It's a fantastic question. I should try and estimate next time how much they eat. I'll just try and stay with the giraffe the whole day and see exactly how much they eat. This one. All right, let me move forward again. So Joshua, who is 7, and Zach, who is 5, asked, what are all the different things that giraffes eat? Well, I tell you what, they mostly eat leaves from trees, especially the... I'm going to move forward just a little bit more, especially the greener leaves, the tastier ones, right? But as you can see now, the leaves are starting to get a bit golden and brown, so they're not as nutritious anymore. And you might start to see some giraffes feeding on herbs, which are much smaller green plants. But they definitely they don't try to eat grass, from what I've seen. They generally tend to avoid eating grass. Oh, we seem to have lost this giraffe. It seems to be hiding from us. Oh, it's just popping up. So, Joshua and Zach, that's leaves from the thorniest trees mostly. And that's because they've got all these adaptations, and they're so tall that they can get to the leaves that other animals can't reach. Often you'll find trees that are shaped in a funny way because they're fed on them. Right, what we're going to be doing now is we're going to keep seeing this giraffe a little bit longer. We're going to send you over to a very flat cat.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Djuma Game Reserve. And yes, my cat is big, strong, hairy, and flat. He actually probably could not be any flatter if he tried. He's doing a very good job at being a pancake cat. My name is Lauren, and I do have BK on camera. This is Blondie. I had him this morning right at the very end. He is the troublemaker we have been tracking all morning this morning. His tracks are everywhere, and he belongs to a coalition of males called the Avokas, the dominant male coalition in this area. There's 3 of them. They're a trio: Blondie, Mohawk, and Darkmane. Doesn't really look like a lion. As you're driving, you could easily drive past him and think it's possibly a fluffy termite mound. But of course it's hot. And being a hairy mammal, it's important. Yes, there you go, BK, perfect. Look how camouflage he is. You can barely see him. So being hot in these temperatures, it makes sense just to seek out some shade and rest. It's 29 degrees Celsius and 84 degrees Fahrenheit. So I'm sure once it gets cooler a little bit later, he will get up and start walking about. So I'm going to just scratch around here, see if anything else is around, and we're going to come back to our sleepy lion a little bit later. But for now, you guys are going to go all the way down to the Tswalu Kalahari.
Watching this magnificent kudu bull. Look at that, with those corkscrew horns just watching us. We're actually very close to a waterhole over here. And I think this bull was actually either on his way to drink, or had moved out of the area already after drinking, on his way out. There are some very, very old lion tracks in the area as well, so it's maybe something worth keeping our eyes open for. But look how that animal disappears in that thicket. I mean, that bull is 230 kilograms, and it just disappears like an absolute ghost, eh? So exciting, so exciting. It's always amazing coming out here and just seeing I think those are hyena tracks, I think. Oh no, these are lion tracks. This looks like a lioness, a single lioness, moving down this way. And there is actually a hyena. This is the, yes, I put my knee on a thorn. Okay, yes. I was watching. That's the lion track over there, the lioness, and there's the hyena track just in front of it. So there's a big size difference there. Neither of these are very fresh. but certainly something to keep eyes open for and in the area. So the plot thickens. And the hyena, interestingly, the hyena tracks are actually on top of the lion tracks, which means the lion tracks are obviously older than the hyena tracks. Not necessarily by a lot. It could be that the hyena was tagging along behind the lion, and the tracks are going in that direction. So we'll just carry on with this and see what we can get. Maybe we'll be lucky.
I must say, it doesn't really feel like winter here. It feels nice and warm as we sit at the waterhole with a hippopotamus that is, well, at rest. Very peaceful in the afternoon, fast asleep, hasn't even bothered to open its eyes to greet us. And then, other than the hippo, there are a few other little residents that we have over here. We've got a little grebe swimming towards the hippo. There it is, part of the family that includes sibling called Zahir. I'm assuming that's Harold. It might be Zahir. No way to tell the difference. Swimming to say hello to his hippopotamus friend, who's just blinked. All right, we're going to now hand over to Lauren, who's got some warthogs.
I have just came maybe 50 meters, maybe less, away from our sleepy male lion, and we have warthogs. I've counted 5 of them. Very flighty today, but I don't think they realise there's a male lion not so far away. I think they have absolutely no idea. Be careful, guys. They're very skittish, these warthogs. They're alert. They're quite an easy snack for lions. Lions will hunt warthogs, normally individually, because it's not enough to feed a pride. So normally we'll find single lions, male and female, hunting warthogs, but also leopard. It's a little bit more challenging for leopards, shall we say. You've got to be careful of those tusks. They could cause severe injury if the predator's not careful. So the hunt's got to be very well executed. Look at them go. Whew, they're not happy. They're running in the direction of Blondie. Not the wisest move. But I do think our lion is a little bit too sleepy. So I just want to quickly show you here, in my book, the warthog's tusks. See how big they are. They're formidable weapons of defense. And they're actually just modified canines, so they're teeth. We also have canines, but they grow out sideways. I haven't seen any human with canines that look like this. But they help protect the warthog from danger. And this is the upper tusks that you can see here. So I'm just going to use my porky pointer. This is the upper tusk. They're very, very big and make them look really formidable. But actually there's another set of tusks on the lower jaw that you can't see here, tucked up inside. And although they're smaller, they're much smaller than the upper ones, they can do a lot of damage. And these are the set of tusks that you have to be really careful for. Not really these ones. These are more show. The ones on the inside, the lower tusks, are the ones that will cause damage. They're hidden They articulate against the inner groove of the upper jaw, so you can actually see them. And they're quite strong, warthogs. If they were to run into you at full speed, it would probably do some damage. So I just thought I would show you that, because our warthogs are quite flighty. So we're just going to go to the west to a waterhole to see if anybody's thirsty, and then we will come back to our sleepy male lion. So let's bumble ahead and see what we can see.
So just past the waterhole, we saw this little herd of wildebeest. Now, to myself and Owen, I mean, whenever we drive past wildebeest, we always just stop and have another look at them, because always there's could be something interesting that we can possibly learn from them, or maybe even observe from what's going on around them. Now, just to show you, so right in the middle, if we can just zoom a little bit closer to the ones that we're looking at now, you'll notice there's different colors. You'll see that the one right in the middle there that's now facing, or looking off to our left of the screen, now facing towards us. Look at the shades of color around the face. You'll notice there's black, like from the nose towards the eyes. And then just above that, there's a little bit of brown. And you'll notice some of the older ones, like if I'm going to ask, let's go a little bit right of those. There's another group of 3 that's standing just right of them. If you look at the one on the left, you'll notice that that one doesn't have that brown shade. It's more of a dark patch. So the older they get, the more dark they have from the horns all the way down towards the nose. But another interesting thing that I think we always or sometimes miss with wildebeest is, like, if you look at it, the movement of its mouth, look at how the mouth, instead of going up and down, it's actually going sideways. You might just see the lip going from left to right. Now, why it's doing that is it has these flat teeth at the back, almost like our back teeth. And basically what it does is, as soon as it eats, it actually grinds it. So by moving it side to side, it grinds it down into smaller bits that's able to digest a lot better. And then, let's say if we go from the mouth a little bit down, you'll notice that the knees look like they have this whitish wash. And basically what that is so with the wildebeest, whenever they stand up, they have to push on their knees first, and then after their knees, they then pull themselves up. I don't know if any of the viewers have ever seen with horses, when they get up, they first put their knees down, and then from there, they push themselves up so that they can stand on their feet. And that's why that patches of hair is missing there. So it's basically very, very hard skin on their knees. And even if they go down to lie down, is they'll first put down their knees, then their back feet is tucked under them, and then they go and lie down. But so beautiful to see. I just want to see, earlier on, I thought I saw a bird near these wildebeest. I just want to use binoculars just to scan. I think that bird might just be behind the wildebeest. Now, I'm going to try and just grab a bird book, but before you come all the way down to where I am now, I just want to quickly get my bird book so I can show this to you. Alright, so I just want to quickly show you, I'm just going to try and get my shadow out of the way. So there are some birds that we refer to as starlings, which you often find in this area. And one of the most common ones you find here is called the Birchall starling. So as I said, I just want to get my shadow out of the way, so I'll try and use my finger, so the shadow of my finger, in order to point out. But if you look over here, you'll notice it's a beautiful blue iridescent bird with a very beautiful long tail, a bit of black around the face. So this Birchall starling of course, feeds off a lot of insects. And now often with a herd of wildebeest like this, you can imagine if they do move, especially there's a bit of grass where they are now, so if they would move to the grass, or maybe even move to the side, they might just disturb some insects, and the starlings will go and catch it. They might also attract other insects as well. Look at how that one is going down. Remember earlier we said first they go down with their knees, and then they tuck their back feet under them. I think if the one goes and lies down, it won't be long before the others will do that. So see that one that's just moving closer? Let's have a look. Remember, so when they go down, first on their knees, and then they tuck their back feet in. Of course, when I say that, it might take a little bit longer than expected. But if we give it some time, you can often see that, especially with a herd like this, you can see they're getting a bit more relaxed. And also might be with their body. It's quite heavy standing the whole time, so eventually to go and lie down is a bit easier. It takes a lot of strain off their shoulders, and they might start ruminating. So ruminating is basically bring up everything they ate during the morning and the afternoon, and then rechew that again and swallow it so that it can break down even more and more. See, there's another one that's going to lie down. See the one on the left there? There we go. And then the one on the right, just of that one right there, Owen, just a little bit left in the screen. Think it's not going to be too long. Look at the head. Probably just seeing, is the area good? No sharp rocks? Okay, let's try it. There we go. But I think for now, doesn't look like these wildebeest are going to be heading anywhere pretty soon. We'll spend another couple of minutes with them, see if there's any other interesting birds, but I think from there on, we'll probably continue our search. And as we go along, I haven't given a proper plan as of yet what we're going to do, but that's hopefully, as soon as it starts getting a little bit darker, I'd love to share that with everyone.
Our hippopotamus has just gone under the water. We've been waiting here, hoping to show him to you again, but alas, he has now disappeared. Well, he can't hold his breath forever, so he'll stick his head up at some stage and say hello to us again, I hope. In the meantime, I suppose we can look at the little grebes, which are pretty much all over this waterhole. You can take your pick. There's one straight in front of us. There's one swimming about there, looking for nice things to eat. Well, nice for the grebe, probably not so nice for people. Water insects and that sort of thing. And what's interesting, for those of you who don't know, a waterhole like this, if it stays for long enough, in other words, if it doesn't dry out, will eventually have fish in it. And it's often a great mystery as to how the fish get here. We think they come in the bird droppings from birds that have eaten fish, or perhaps even the eggs come on the legs of birds that move between waterholes. And these grebes would certainly eat small fish if they could catch them, but I don't think there are any fish in here right now. And I'm sure many of you have been watching for quite a while now, and you'll know that we're quite fond of these little grebes because we've watched them from the time they were eggs. Harry, there can be crocodiles in the water, but there aren't any here as far as I'm aware. Now, you must never assume that there are no crocodiles in the water in Africa, because that's the fastest way to lose a limb or die, is to look around the surface of the water and say, well, there are no crocodiles in here, I'll just jump in and have a swim. There are lots and lots of stories of people just never coming up again, because crocodiles are very good at hiding, and they're also very good at moving between waterholes. So I have seen crocodiles here before. I don't see any right now. I don't think there are any right now, but you couldn't pay me enough to get into this water and try and swim across it, because the crocodiles could be here. Our hippos back out, and you absolutely do see crocodiles and hippos in the same waterholes. In a completely natural system, you wouldn't have a dam like this. You know, this is a dam. It's a man-made waterhole. You'd have crocodiles and hippos living together in rivers, and often in slightly separate parts of the river. So up in the Masai Mara, where we've spent quite a lot of time, you'll find hippos in big pods in the rivers where the water is relatively calm. And then you find crocodiles often in the more rapid areas, actually, and sometimes they overlap and sometimes they don't, but they don't tend to conflict with each other too much. Extremely peaceful scene here. I was rather hoping a herd of elephants might arrive to have a drink, or even that big herd of buffalo that we had earlier. LT, a really massive hippo can probably get to about 2,500 kilograms. But you'll probably find that most males make it to about 1,800 kilograms, which is still pretty heavy. It's about as heavy as this car, I think. In fact, I can probably tell you exactly. This car weighs 2,500 kilograms. So it's the weight of a really big hippopotamus. Right, we are now going to say goodbye to the kids. Well, we're not going to say goodbye to them. I'm sure they're still going to keep on watching, but we're going to open the floor to everybody else who might like to give us a comment or ask us a question. And so for those of you who would like to, you can do that using the hashtag WildEarth on Twitter. Otherwise, you can use the comment section on YouTube. Now, we have a very special day today for Robin and Elizabeth Tagg. Now, Robin and Elizabeth have pulled off a feat which I think is quite remarkable. I personally have been married for 3 months, and while it hasn't been a trial, there are challenges to it. Robin and Elizabeth have been married for 50 years, and so a massive congratulations to you, and may there be 50 more, if you want them. Congratulations. Right, we're going to move on from here and see what else we can find in the northeastern parts of Djuma. Lauren has got some birds for you, so let's go and find out what they are.
I did have some birds. That didn't quite go to plan, I'm afraid. Not at all. So, I had some oxpeckers. And it's interesting to see them on trees because normally you see them on the backs of herbivores. Okay, now we're going to try again. This is a great pan. I love this pan for spotting unusual birds. And sometimes you just have to sit for just a moment. And once they relax in your presence, they'll all start to come down and take a drink. This is one-eyed pan. I don't know why it's called that. But it's in Simbambili, and it's always worth checking. The Nkuhumas love to come here. Leopards love to drink here, especially in winter. It's a hubbub of activity. Oh, it's a waxbill. Well done, BK. Just find a blue waxbill. One of the smaller birds out here that's actually very, very difficult to put on camera. Good job. We do have a bird after all. They're very flighty birds. Seed eaters. But when the sun catches that blue colour just at the right moment, it's stunning. We get different waxbills. This is the most common one that we see. Females are slightly paler than the males, but it's really tricky to identify. They've got less blue on the face, if that makes sense, but the sizes of both sexes are the same. I think they're looking for some seeds. Occasionally they do eat insects, so they're omnivorous, but they're predominantly seed eaters, and immediately you can tell that by looking at the beak. The shape of the beak tells you straight away that they're seed eaters. And they regularly drink. Waxbills are very often found around water bodies because they're quite dependent on water. This is such a lovely sighting. It's not often we get to see blue waxbills stay still for so long. They're monogamous, So you can find them in large groups, but very often there'll be pairs. The groups will be made up of pairs. One male, one female. And just as I say that, we now have 3. Thank you, Wax Bills. Okay, I think I might stay and enjoy this water body a little bit longer, look for some tracks, see what we can find.
So this is a really, really nice sighting. I know it's quite far, but this is a pale chanting goshawk. It's one of the most common raptors that we got in this area, and this bird is probably the one that the meerkats are the most nervous of. But it just shows you never know what raptors or predators you're going to be finding out. What on earth is that? Oh my word. Okay, I have to admit that was completely but yeah, that was a pale chanting goshawk. It still is, technically. It still definitely is a pale chanting goshawk. But look at this. So our field rangers actually reported this kill earlier in the day. Judging by the state of this carcass, it's not a fresh carcass. It looks like it's been it was probably killed 2 or 3 days ago. We still don't even know exactly how many lions there are. From where we're sitting, we got these 2 on the carcass, and there's another one lying hidden just on the left-hand side, just behind the eland's head. There's a tiny bush. There you go, tucked in there. That is a lion, believe it or not. And then way down across the left-hand side, so that's 3. There's another one. So this is really, really cool, and I'm so glad we actually managed to get the location of this from the guys. There's another one there, and I think another one just to the right of that one, in the shade. Yeah, there you can just see its belly. How's that for camouflage, eh? If you were walking here, there's no way you'd see those lions lying down there. So the eland seem to be having a bad run of things. If you think of that amazing sighting that we had yesterday, sitting in that little blind, and that we made out of branches, and to this huge eland bull. And this one died of anything but old age, and I think there's enough evidence there to support that. Jeez. I'm actually just, when I say I don't think he died of old age, and it was the lions, and because, remember we were chatting about lions a while back, how they will actually scavenge. So I know it looks dead obvious, excuse the pun here, it looks dead obvious, well, there's an eland, there's lions, therefore they must have caught it. Well, unless you actually saw that kill happening, or you went back on the tracks, and you could interpret the sign, say, yeah, these lions caught this eland. You've actually got no evidence to really go and say, well, they actually did catch it. So, but why I'm saying I don't think it's a old age mortality, if you look at the horns and just the size of that animal, the neck, look how big it is. It's just muscular. This animal was in its absolute prime. Those horns are still nice and sharp on the end. This was a big eland bull in absolutely mint condition. So I would go with the lions having killed this one. But they've certainly worked their way through this carcass, so my word. I think we're just going to spend quite a bit of time here this afternoon just watching these. I think it's something pretty special, and I'm sure all of you will agree there.
WildEarth relies on support from viewers like you to carry on broadcasting our daily live shows. A small donation goes a long way in helping us on our mission to connect the world with nature. Please visit our support page to see how you can help and become part of the WildEarth family.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to andBeyond Phinda Private Game Reserve for this afternoon's drive. And my name is Clive. And behind the camera today, we have Marcel. So we've come across quite a beautiful scene here of these 4 white rhinos just quietly grazing in this bit of an open grassland. Oh, look, a little red-billed oxpecker just landed on one of them. It's just such a beautiful scene. So there's 2 quite young ones here. As you can see, they haven't even been dehorned yet, but I'm sure they will be very soon. And then the big one that's furthest away from us, kind of in the middle, is the mother of one of them anyway. And even the one next to her actually looks like a young male as well. So she's got 3 young rhinos that have kind of latched onto her, it looks like. So for those of you who might not know or might not have heard before, the reason these are white rhinos is that they have their head right down on the ground and they are feeding on grass. And they've got that big square mouth, which helps them to get right down to the ground level to eat that grass. Sure, it's really just perfect light this afternoon. Oh, sorry for my little silence there. I was actually trying to suppress a sneeze. It happens. Wow, Tegan. Well, I guess they kind of look like big rocks, which might help. But with them being so big, they actually don't have a need to be camouflaged. They don't need to hide from anything. As you can see, they're out in the open, and that's quite normal for a white rhino, is to be out in the open grasslands. So they don't try and hide. They don't try and stay away from any of the predators. They rely just on the bulk and their size to be able to stay safe. I think they're just walking behind this one little tree. I'm just going to move across and have a better view. You are asking how thick the rhino's skin is. In some areas, like on their back, that skin is over 1 centimeter thick. There are other places, like obviously around their ears is very thin. There's a few other places where it's quite thin, but that skin on their back especially is very, very thick. There we go. It looks like we're going to get a nice view over here. Oh, look at that. Now there's an oxpecker sitting on the one in the middle, and there's a starling sitting on him. That's a Cape starling, the bright blue bird sitting on his back. Oh, Gremlins, you asking what a group of rhinos is called? This one is going to shock you. It's such a good one. It's one of my favorites. This is called a crash of rhinos. A crash. And it's so fitting. I think it's one of the best collective nouns of all the animals. Now let's test some of your bird knowledge. So there's the oxpecker sitting on the back of the one in the middle, and there's also the starlings. There's 2 of them flying around. They're actually more sitting on the ground around the rhinos. Can't see them right now, but can you think what both those different birds are eating? Well, what it is, there's a very special bird I want to show you quickly. Marcel, see in that tree, there's a small little black bird. Can you go to it? Hopefully before it flies away. It's a really beautiful bird. Look at that. It's black, but if it turns... Oh, no. If it turns to us, you would have seen a bright red chest. You might have seen that. I'm not too sure. I'm just going to bring out a book and show you a picture quickly. That was called a scarlet-chested sunbird, though. Really one of the more beautiful birds around here. Anyway, I gave you some time to think of the answers about what those birds are eating. So the oxpecker, I'm sure a lot of you know, eats the ticks and other parasites off of the rhinos. And the starlings, what they're doing is they're making use of these big rhinos walking through the grass to disturb insects that are on the ground. And then as those insects fly up, the starlings just take advantage and they quickly shoot up and they go and catch the insects that are flying away from the rhinos. Just want to show you quickly in the book here. It's this bird over here, the one that was sitting right at the top of the tree. It's really beautiful. Called a scarlet-chested sunbird. There's actually a lot of these sunbirds out and about at the moment because in winter we get a lot of aloes flowering, and that gives off a lot of nectar, which obviously brings a lot of the sunbirds. Oh, I hear there's a couple of people getting it right. I'm so happy to hear that. Getting the bird food question right. Well done. We're going to spend a bit more time with these rhinos, probably get into a slightly better position, just because they're just moving behind that tree again. But we'll let you carry on with your safari for now.
Welcome back to Pride Lands. You've come just in time to watch what we think is the matriarch of this beautiful herd of elephants doing her thing. They are feeding on this beautiful green grassy area on some of the juicier morsels now. It's winter, so it's very dry in most parts of the bush, but we're sitting in quite a low area, and this low area has collected some moisture, and all these elephants are loving it at the moment. As you can see, there's quite a large herd. I mean, from here we can see how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, at least 11 elephants spread out in front of us, which is awesome. A mixture of very young ones and older ones, and the one that's just moving off there, the one I mentioned, is the matriarch. So she might start to make some sort of sound to lead all the rest of the herd on. Look at the young ones. They've been very rambunctious, playing and pushing each other. Look at that, look at that. Practicing for when they're big and strong. That one on the left is a young male. I don't know about the one on the right. I wasn't actually paying attention, but I would assume it's also a young male. And they're often pushing each other around because, they watch the older males doing their thing and they want to emulate that. You often find the young elephants are much more, playful and willing to test their strength with many different animals, sometimes much larger animals than themselves, sometimes very small animals. Very quiet. It's amazing. Most of them are actually feeding on the grass because the grass is much more nutritious than most of the leaves at this time of year. All right, so there's a question. Sorry, I couldn't quite catch your name, but your question was that how long do baby elephants stay with the mothers? Well, that is a great question, actually. Young elephants stay with the mothers depending on if it's a male or a female, for a long time. Females will stay with what they call the natal herd, which is the herd that they are born in for their whole life, technically speaking, unless there's some sort of major event which causes the family to split up. Male elephants will generally only stay until the mother tells them to move on because they're getting too aggressive, often with the females. That means around about when they reach puberty. So with elephants, they can be anywhere from about 13 to 20 years old, anywhere around there. I mean, I'd say in their early teens, the mothers tend to see that they're getting bigger and stronger, starting to push their weight around and be interested in the females, and the mothers don't want them anywhere near the young females, so they start to push them away. But they'll usually stay for another year or two or longer, in the peripheries of the herd before they eventually attach themselves to a bachelor herd. I think all these elephants, very, very playful, the young ones. So, look at that. it's a bit of a dominance display. So that's what male elephants will do for females when they're mounting them for mating. But I think those are two males, and so it's more of a dominance display. You know, just playing with each other. Here comes another one in, swinging his trunk around, showing off how strong he is, how big and strong he is. But yeah, so you know, anywhere between. Oh, look at that little duiker just ran off and just scared that big elephant. Didn't scare it, but definitely got its attention. How quick they're alert. And if it was something to be worried about, let's say it was a predator of some sort, that elephant would have made a sound that we might have heard or not, which would have got all of them excited. Laurie has asked a question, which is a really, really good question, about bees. Are elephants afraid of bees? Certainly, there are a lot of organizations that are using bees all over Africa to try and minimize elephants' destruction of crops. So they do that by hanging beehives along the edges of the fields. And yes, absolutely, elephants can learn that bees are can be very aggressive, especially African honeybees. So they'll sting the sensitive parts of the elephants around their eyelids, the end of the trunk, you know, behind the ears, and that also when elephants are pushing over trees which have the hives in, and that will chase off the elephants. So definitely, in fact, there are many places nearby to where we are right now that are using bees as a way to keep elephants out of lodges, to stop them from coming into the lodges and damaging the trees inside the lodges. So instead of having fences, you just have beehives. On the side of that is that you get lovely natural wild honey from those bees, which is really delicious. So it's really, really great. So definitely, elephants hate bees. In fact, even playing the sound of a bee swarm, you know, a buzzing sound, can also get elephants' attention and keep them away. But only if they know what that is. If it's a very young elephant, it might not know what that is and not be afraid. But an older elephant probably does know. Got that little tiny one there, just very close to what's probably its mother, often learning what the mother's eating and how she's using her trunk and seeing what she can do. Elephants are the most amazing creatures. They are so sensitive with each other. And you know, for something which has a face or the head which is so different to ours, I find that they have such emotion in their eyes and the way they treat each other. Look what that one's doing there. It's trying to gather grass with its trunk. Look how it twirls the grass around its trunk and then flicks it to try and get off any loose dead grass or bits of soil that might be attached to the roots, and then stuffs it in its mouth. Like eating machines. There was a question about how much giraffes eat, and I wasn't sure exactly how much they can eat. It's a lot, for sure, they eat, but not as much as elephants. This elephant here is a, I don't know, small-ish female, I would assume, and it probably eats 50, 60 kilograms easily, maybe up to 100. All right, we're going to watch these elephants a bit longer, and I'm going to send you off to our wonderful hyena.
So we just found a spotted hyena. So he is moving, or she might be moving into this open area. So basically just crossed the road in front of us. So we just want to quickly have a look. Might just get a very beautiful silhouette of this hyena as it's moving into the sun. Now earlier on we found quite a few lion tracks in this particular part of the reserve, and I wonder if the lions, because they've moved through the area, has probably grabbed a bit of attention with some of the hyenas that are around here. And you can see this hyena is moving, probably the wind is blowing from the hyena towards us, so basically this hyena is moving into the wind, and you can see now and then just listening out, lifting up its head and smelling. So like those wildebeest we saw earlier, have you noticed with the hyena, they have, looks like the front legs are a little bit longer than the back legs. I think we might lose this hyena. What I'm going to try and do, no, I think it's just moved into quite a dense area where we won't be able to follow it. I think for now, maybe let's possibly carry on with our drive. But what I wanted to mention with that though, is so with the wildebeest, let's carry on. As we carry on, I'll explain. But so with that wildebeest, you can imagine, like the hyena, they have longer front legs in comparison to the back legs, and all that helps is it helps to almost like even out spread the weight across the whole body, and because of that, they have a lot more stamina, especially when they need to run quite far distances.
Welcome back again. And as you can see, these rhinos are still slowly just on the move here. And just feeding in this nice cool afternoon. Now you'll often see a female rhino with an old calf. It's very hard to say which is her calf. Maybe it's that one that's closest to her now. But a female that has an old calf like this will then mate again, and after another 16 months give birth again when this calf is around this age. And if you look at that mother's belly, I would say she's starting to look pretty pregnant to me. So she might give birth in the next month or two and might eventually get rid of these other three that are following her. Tom, it's normally at around about 2 years old that they feel that it's safe enough to be able to dart the mother and the young one and dehorn them. And that's normally, as I say, at about 2 years old. This is such an amazing sight here. Especially in this like beautiful golden afternoon light. Hi Diane. No, warthogs they're not related. Warthogs, I guess, are, well, definitely related to pigs, but they've got very different foot structures. Warthog has got 2 hooves, whereas these rhino have actually got 3 toes on a really big foot. So quite different families, but I understand exactly what you mean. They do have quite similar faces. I agree with you. No, rhinos are really in a family of their own. There's not a lot of other animals like them. They just look so prehistoric to me. Especially those little folds of skin over the shoulders. Well, from these big animals walking through this open grassland, we're going to send you across to James now with a giraffe.
We have got some giraffes here. This particular giraffe is eating the greenery off a torchwood tree. Now it's almost a succulent, the torchwood, and so those leaves are probably pretty good if you can cope with the nasty thorns. It's also called the green thorn, as many of you will know. There's a young bull giraffe who seems to be very much enjoying what looks like a very spiky tea to me. Most gorgeous Saturday afternoon. Really does feel like a Saturday afternoon. Still and peaceful. Shelley, I don't know the answer to that question. I have absolutely no idea. I've never thought to look it up, and now I think I probably will look it up. I don't know if many male mammals have fewer ribs than female mammals. I'm assuming you mean like humans do. I'm not sure. This guy's got a sort of mentor up ahead. There's another big bull giraffe, probably I don't know, at least 5 or 6 years older than this chap further up ahead. Alex, giraffe have horns so that they can fight. Now, I'm just going to move forward slightly so we can get a better look. But strictly speaking, we wouldn't actually call them horns. Strictly speaking, we call them ossicones. And that's because they're slightly different from horns. They're actually born with them. And if I'm not mistaken, they grow from the top and the bottom, whereas a horn grows from the base of the skull. I think that's how it works. But they're born with them, and they lie flat when they're born, and then after a few days they stand up like that. And mainly it's for fighting. That's why the bulls have them. I'm not really sure why the cows have them, because they don't fight. Well, not a great deal anyway. The males do use them to fight, but you know, they use their heads as much as they use their horns.
So these lions are doing a really good job at dismantling this eland. They've eaten a huge amount. The lionesses still haven't come in. It's still been these. Well, the one that just lay down over there that we've been watching, that's a lioness. But the sub-adult males that we're feeding on the carcass, the one is still nibbling. He actually just pulled out a beautiful bit of gory stuff. It looks even like it could be a liver or something. I'm not quite sure what that object was. It's got, or maybe even a bit of lung. Or neither. No, that's a bit of stomach over there that he got there. And he's lapping the blood now. Yes, he's pulling at it with long teeth. But all of them are so full, so this is kind of more just the fact that there's meat here that'll cause him just to keep on feeding. The other one went off earlier, urinated, and then went down towards the adult females. There's another lioness that's just come in here on the right. It's just joined up with the other one. It's doing a lot of, you see that they're grooming each other. That is very, very, very important for social bonding. And hygiene, you know, keeping each other clean, you know, all the hard to get places. What a beautiful shot there. Jeez. This is the time of day I love watching lions. Well, I love watching them anytime, but as it starts getting cooler later in the afternoon, they get up, they start doing things. But their bellies are round. So a meal like this, they're obviously not catching eland every single day. This is probably a prey outside like this. They won't need to hunt again for another 4 to 5 days. And that's a huge amount of meat for, assuming it's the 5 lions that I'm thinking of would be here. And it would have been a spectacularly good kill to see. Some of you may be wondering if this is the same eland carcass. It is a different eland carcass. There's a lot more grass around this one. It's not lying in amongst the trees or next to those trees like the other one was. And it's a lot fresher than that other one was, I think. And judging by the looks of it, it's a bigger bull, a bull that was in better condition. Yeah, this lioness is now moving into feed. Look at those muscles on her. Look at that. Look at those muscles. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. You know, for all they're lying around and not doing anything for much of the day, they are just simply magnificent cats, eh? So the shoulder muscles. And they need that strength in the hindquarters and the shoulders. The hindquarters, particularly for that burst of speed, they're incredibly fast over a short distance. You know, they'll typically try to stalk prey to it, well, literally as close as they can get. And that could be 10 meters, it could be 30 meters. But not that frequently over larger distances than that. Just they'll try to stalk as close as possible. Then they rely on this super fast burst of speed at a short range to try to catch stuff. And that's why they need those powerful hindquarters. Those shoulders on large prey, they'll actually leap up, pull it down around the neck and the shoulder, pull it down like that. Or they'll actually, on even larger prey, things like buffalo and that, they'll actually get onto the hindquarters and try to unstabilize the animal and then pull it down. And then they'll go for the muzzle and the throat. Lizette has asked a brilliant question, and I like those kind of questions. Lizette has asked, are there any animals that will eat the horns too? Those of you who were with us a couple of days ago went into that gigantic porcupine burrow. There were hard-to-beast horns inside there. So porcupines will occasionally take those and drag them back. But it's not that often that you'll actually even see porcupines gnawing on the horns themselves. They're more going for the bone cast inside the horns. But there is a really cool little animal, and hopefully some of our colleagues in the other areas will be able to show you a really nice example of that. And we don't get them in these arid areas, unfortunately. But there's a species of moth called a horn codling moth, Ceratophaga vastella. Now that one, Ceratophaga, that name means ceros from horn and phagus meaning eating, so it's a horn-eating moth. And they actually, the larvae actually feed on the horns themselves, and you pick up these old buffalo horns and things like with these like weird cocoon-like structures festooned all over them. So there's a species that is particularly designed for feeding on the keratin on the horns. But otherwise, you don't. I mean, you don't see a lot of things feeding on horns out here. Even hyenas, they'll rather gnaw on a bone than feed on horns, and that's one reason why you'll walk around the bush in most places and you'll find the horns of animals, and often the skulls. Most of the skull gets eaten away, especially on smaller game, but the horns remain. Lions will, on small prey items, things like duiker, steenbok, they'll actually just chew the entire skull up and swallow the horns like that, but that normally gets passed through the digestive tract. Good question. I think these cats are going to start, a little bit later. I mean, they don't seem like they're in any rush to be going anywhere, but I think once they've finished up here, they're going to start moving down towards the nearest waterhole, which straight line from here is probably about 1 kilometer due south of us. So we'll just stick around a little bit and see what they do.
And again, these rhinos are still just moving around and feeding on this grass. But they actually came quite close to us here, and then they seemed to look up and realize that we were right here, and then they turned off and headed in the other direction. But you'll see their eyes are very, very small. So their eyesight is not fantastic, and the wind was coming straight from the rhinos onto us, so they couldn't smell us either. Yes, Donna, just as I was saying, the eyesight is not great, but they definitely make up for it with all their other senses. Their ears, you'll see now when we stop again. Let's stop there. You'll see they've got very big ears, and they can move those ears independently as well. Which pointed away from us backwards and listening behind them. And then also on the side of their mouth, we can't see any of the mouths now, but they've got very big nostrils, so a very good sense of smell as well. so they often do let other rhinos join, yes. The biggest crash I've seen is about 12, if I remember right. 12 or 13 and white rhinos, not as much with the black rhinos.
And we're back with us. Sorry, we just lost Clive's audio there a little bit. Sorry about that. But we could be sitting in a worse place, let's face it. Jandra and I were just saying how big this lioness is. Yeah, it's always difficult to make a comment like that when you don't have another lioness lying there to sort of judge it against. But she really is a big, chunky, beautiful, immaculate condition lioness. So I think it must be those tracks that we saw earlier. It's almost certainly one of these cats that had gone down to the waterhole and then come back after drinking. So I'm guessing later this whole pride is going to move down that way. I don't see any sign of males around this area except for these two youngsters that we're feeding on the carcass when we got here. So the beauty of the large carcass like this, and even now, we see it kind of as like there's ribs and just stomach contents lying around. There's still plenty of meat on there. And if the males moved in, these females and youngsters wouldn't bat an eyelid if they took that carcass. Yeah, there'd be no issues there. But it's beautiful, the backdrop of the mountains. Totally different landscape to where our colleagues are at the moment. And these lions will utilize these hills. I've yet to see them actually hunting up in the hills, but certainly if you've got a lioness with cubs, then they normally go up into these big deep valleys inside the hills. You often get these very constricted, narrow, what in South Africa we call kloofs, which is like a small narrow gorge up in these hills, and those are really good denning sites for lions. And as the cubs get a little bit older, they'll move out, join up with the pride again. Interesting to note all the brown hyena tracks that were on top of what we assume is one of these lionesses that we had earlier. But you don't see them sitting around just kind of like waiting in the shadows. They're probably lurking much further away with all these cats around. Paul has asked, do we ever get to see the Kalahari black-maned lion at Tswalu? Absolutely, Paul. That is one of the features of the male lions here. These two youngsters that were on the carcass that we saw earlier, they have got another 2 years to go at least before you'll actually start seeing that really dark mane coming through. But hopefully, there were reports of males, but they, from where we're sitting here now, it's probably about 10 kilometers north of here. That was the latest sighting that anyone of male lions that anyone had today. But we'll keep our eyes open for them. But they are really magnificent animals. There's one doing some yoga there. I have no idea what that position is called. Probably something like the flat cat. Jeez, that's when you know you're at the apex. When you can just laze around like that and not have a care in the world. Hyena's asked a great question again, and we touched on this yesterday. Someone asked when we were sitting with that hyena carcass, what do you call that, eland carcass yesterday. They also, why aren't there vultures over there? And there could be a number of reasons for that. But I was saying that with the proximity of that eland to these mountains, you get a huge amount of turbulence right over these hills. And the fact that this carcass, this kill that these lions are made on this eland, is pretty much, we are 400 meters in a straight line from the base of these hills here. That would probably be a really, really good indication of why there aren't vultures down on this carcass over here. It's just the flying conditions would be incredibly bumpy for vultures over here, and they've got plenty of other options further away from the hills. So typically on Tswalu, in this area, the further away you go from the mountains, the greater your chance is of seeing vultures bathing at waterholes, flying, spiraling on kills, that kind of stuff. The closer you are towards the hills, the less likelihood there is of that. And we're surmising it's got to do with air currents, turbulence, air pockets. I think we're just going to wait here. Maybe these lions will go down to the water, then we'll see if we can get down there ahead of them. So we're just going to spend as much time as we need.
We did have a female kudu for you all, standing glorious, but she's just moved off, and I'm not sure we can get a better view for you. I'm not having much luck today, am I? Let's try, but I'm not sure if we can do this. What's the tree beaks? Oh, that's a tree. We just drove into a tree. Wunderbar. Okay. It just seems to be a lone female kudu. She appears to be young. She's not fully grown. And this is quite unusual. I imagine the rest of the herd are somewhere in the thicket. We just can't see them. And look how well she blends in. She's got those bars down the body, those disruptive markings. Sort of tawny coloured coat. And it helps her completely blend into the vegetation. Despite her size, she's large. Kudus are large antelopes. Not as large as eland, but they are big. The males are, of course, much bigger. See just how discreetly she blends in there. They're very tall kudu. Not necessarily this female, but they are the second tallest in southern Africa. Okay, so I'm going to keep going and try not to drive BK into any trees and see what else we can find.
So I know this scene pretty much looks like the same one that you saw at Tswalu Kalahari, but it is different. So we hear it andBeyond in Ngala, and other than an eland bull, these lions are actually on a buffalo carcass. So this is the burning pride, the pride with the white lines in it. And this morning, just after our morning drive, not even 2 minutes afterwards, we found them just in this little drainage system, of course, on this carcass. So let's spend some time. I heard earlier on there was you can see there's not a lot left on this carcass. And as soon as the other ones started getting a bit closer, you can hear them. Listen. You might just hear these low growls at one another. Now, the thing about lions, we mentioned it quite a few times on our drives, is there's no table manners. So it's every lion for themselves. And so you'll see often when they feed around a carcass like this and one gets too close to the other one or takes this piece of meat, then they do get quite angry about it and upset, and they'll definitely let the other one know about it. So Jenna from South Africa, the lions will eat all the organs, so sometimes they do open up the stomach first to get to the heart as well as the liver. And there could be some of the other, of course, very nutrient-rich organs that they can go for. But, however, with the pride, in general, there's very little of the carcass that gets... Oh, look, there's a little cub. I didn't even know the cub was there. So it looks to me it might be the whole pride with, of course, the two young cubs. Now, that cub, as it moved out, it's actually starting to play with this one's tail. And I think the mother might just be at the back there. But just to get back, so with lions, there's very little that gets wasted. And even after them, early on, we pointed out some vultures. These hooded vultures would also come in and try and grab a little bit of bits of meat in between the bones, also a bit of marrow. And then, of course, the hyenas will go and clean up everything. I think in the bush, there's very little that gets wasted. Everything eventually, as they always say, it's a whole circle of life. Everything eventually goes back into the environment. But it is quite special to see the cubs here as well.
So from youngsters and lions eating, we've got a hornbill also stuffing itself full of something delicious. So you're welcome back to Pride Lands, and we've got this southern yellow-billed hornbill that's found itself a nice pile of what looks like impala dung. It's been driven over a few times, some of it's quite old, but there might be termites that are busy eating that dead plant material in the dung, and that looks like what this hornbill is busy digging for. Or maybe even some small seeds that might be caught there from the wind. It's been a very windy day, but I suspect that it's probably small insects from the way it's jumping about back and forth. It just ran across the road a moment before you guys, before you were here, and it was running back and forth along the road. So I think there's little insects there. Look, it keeps looking back towards us every now and again. No, they're very, very comical to watch. And these hornbills, there's only one here now, but they're often in a pair. And there's lots of trees here with holes all over them. So this could be where they'll be nesting. They nest in the dead trees around here. But this one is just foraging at the moment. I love how they run around. They look so funny. These are my mother's favorite birds. I often try and find little carvings of them whenever I go to visit her. She said that she loves the way they hop around like little clowns in the bush. It's very difficult to tell if this is a male or a female, though. They look very, very similar. See what it's doing with its head? It keeps looking back and forth, trying to catch movement. See, when things are standing still, when the insects are not moving, it's difficult for them to spot them. Caitlin just asked if hornbills scavenge. I don't know if they scavenge, to be honest. I have seen them digging through the stomach content of animals that have been killed, and that is to get to the insects like beetles that might be on the grubs that might be feeding on the stomach content of that animal that's died. And no, I can't say that I think that they scavenge, although I can actually look it up. I'll have to have a look. I know that they eat a wide range of different things. I've seen them eating lizards, small snakes, insects, centipedes, those long, bitey insects, millipedes as well, not eating them, but using them, and, and insects and seeds and fruits. They often eat fruits as well. So a wide variety of different things that they eat, but not scavenging, I don't think. I've never seen one competing with vultures at a carcass. But this one's now moving quite far from the road, digging amongst the grass. There must be a lot of, in all this dry grass, lots and lots of termite and other insect activity. So it's fantastic to see them so relaxed. And often at this time of day, you'll find them at the edge of the road, getting the last of the sun warming up in that nice warm soil and dust bathing themselves as well. So we'll see what this one does in a moment. We're going to keep watching him. I keep saying him. I don't know if it's a him or a her. Could be either. So Treadmill, you've commented on the interesting and unique pattern on the wings. Now look at right now at this bird behind the grasses, how well camouflaged it is. So with that big yellow beak, this bird if it sits, this southern yellow-billed hornbill, if it sits on a tree amongst the dappled branches, it's very, very well camouflaged. So that's exactly why they have that very interesting pattern. And both the southern yellow-billed and the southern red-billed hornbill look almost identical apart from the red bill. And yes, I mean, look at it standing still there. You can hardly see it at all. They also have a very awesome display. So the pattern that you see on the outside of the wing, which is what you saw before, is this black and white speckling. Under the wing, it's almost pure white. And they often have this display in the morning where they tell each other, if it's a pair, and other rival hornbills. They show off the white under the wing and they bob their heads and they dance. It's actually really awesome. Maybe tomorrow morning we'll see it. And you can see what the underside looks like. Bright white. You can still just about see its head digging back and forth in there. Stuffing itself. I wonder how now I'm just keep thinking about how much animals eat. I mean, definitely they'll eat as much as they can. Oh, and there's a warthog in the background just running across. I don't know if you saw that Gerard in the back there. Oh, maybe if we just zoom out a little bit and you'll see it by that fallen log, just to the left of that fallen log, you see it walking there. It's going to go between the two marula trees. There it goes, left, left, left. Yeah, look at that. So, interesting. We've got a hornbill close by now. There's a warthog that's found the only spot where we can't see it. There you go. And this warthog, they often also have a relationship. So when warthogs are foraging in the grass, digging around, they often disturb insects, and the hornbills will often sit in the trees right above them in hopes that they'll catch the insects. This warthog looks a little bit shy. I think it's because it's very windy, so it's a bit nervous. Oh, there it goes. Look at its tail. Wonderful. So there goes Pumbaa, and maybe we'll head over to some beautiful lions sitting in some golden light. Simba, if you will.
That is exactly right. Lions in golden light. So for those of you who are watching just now, we were watching 4 rhinos about 200 meters away from here. Not far at all. I think maybe if I look carefully enough, we might even be able to see the rhinos again, without knowing at all that there were lions up on the rocks right above us. So it was quite a surprise when we realized there were lions here as well. But it was also pretty amazing to be sitting there watching 4 rhinos and be able to see these lions at the same time. Now, as you can see, there's one big lioness lying on the rocks there. And look at those small little cubs. There's one on her left and one on her right. There should actually be a lot more. There should be 5 cubs here altogether and 2 adult lionesses. But this is all we can see for now. Although earlier I counted 4 cubs. So there are quite a few up there anyway. But how amazing is that? And they, from there, can see far, like all the way to the Indian Ocean kind of far. It's a really, really big view from up here. It's one of the highest points on the whole game reserve where these lions are. Now we saw their tracks quite far from here, and they, from early this morning, those tracks had gone to the water and drunk something, and then had come well, we didn't actually see any other tracks because it was quite hard and rocky ground, but they must have come all the way up here. So we're actually surprised to find them up here because we thought they were in a completely different area. But that is amazing. Look at those 2 little cubs now. Oh, look at them. Oh yeah, now it's time to play and bite each other. So you might be wondering how old these cubs are, and this is only let me just make sure I'm right, I think it's only the 3rd time now that I've seen these little cubs. And they are probably in the region of 3 months old now. Lottie, yes, you're 100% right. Oh yeah, look at that full belly. Okay, so that one cub that just got up, I saw it had a very, very full belly, which makes sense because they must have finished eating something last night. I was talking about the tracks going to the water as well, so then often after they eat something, almost all the time actually, after they eat something, they'll then go and drink. And then, look, he's hiding around the rock. And then they've come up now to rest. No more need to walk around. They can find a nice high up spot now and just rest. Whoa. Cute. So this is a completely different pride to the pride that we were spending time with this morning. These lions here are part of the mountain pride. For obvious reasons. So we are going to spend a little bit of time here and see if these lions do get up to anything. I'm sure these cubs are just going to carry on playing like they're doing right now. And maybe if they get, if we get a bit of a better view and they come out onto the rock. But anyway, we will spend a bit of time with them, and for now, we're going to send you over to a big herd of buffalo.
We've got a herd of buffalo here at the same waterhole we were at earlier. It would be nice if they could have arrived then. But the very special thing that we have here is some yellow-billed oxpeckers that are on this herd. Unfortunately, the camera is zooming out of its own accord. We'll try and zoom in again and then just hold the zoom down. Neil, see if that works. Just because we need to see these oxpeckers. And if we go to the left a bit, yeah, in there, around there is where they are. Or they have been. Naturally, they've now moved. There they are. Go left a bit. There, on that, where that bush is, basically, there's an oxpecker. Can we super zoom? That's where they were. Hang on. I'll find them again, I promise. Just keep going left. You'll see them. Keep going left. 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 It's just behind the tree. You can actually see its beak sticking out there. There, that's it. What a sighting of a yellow-billed oxpecker, hey? Look at that, it's about 2 pixels. Anyway, yellow-billed oxpecker, much less common than the red-billed variety, and they've made a good comeback in this part of the world. They were very uncommon for quite a long time, and now we find them around here again, normally only on big animals, like buffalo or giraffe. You won't find them on, well, I mean, I've seen them on warthog, but normally you won't find them on things like warthog and impala. Now, I think that this particular buffalo herd is very clever because it has stayed away from the Nkuhuma pride, which is off towards the west, towards the setting sun. I think that they will probably enjoy a night.
Sorry about that, everyone. Some gremlins must have attacked James there, but we have a giraffe. A male. A dark male. The darker the giraffe, the dark horse, that's what they call them, the dark horse, because they are actually more dominant. The coloration of those thermal patches signify dominance, which is really fascinating. But giraffes are bizarre, let's face it. So wonderful, but bizarre when you think of their anatomy. And during the process of natural selection, nature's not 100% efficient. There's inevitable compromises, always, as with everything in life. For us, it would be our wisdom teeth. Oh, I've had so many problems in my life with wisdom teeth, it's not pleasant. Appendix. Even the blind spot, we actually have a blind spot where the optic nerve actually interrupts our retina, and it means that we can't see. Men have nipples. All of these reasons sort of show that evolution's not been perfect. And even eyes on a blind snake. Blind snakes are very, very common. They don't need vision, they can't see, and yet they have eyes. That's just small imperfections in evolution. But when it comes to giraffes, you would think it would make the most sense for the nerve. There's a special nerve that they have that goes from their voice box to their brain to take the most direct route, i.e. from their voice box straight up vertically to their brain. But it actually doesn't. It goes all the way around and goes completely down the neck from the brain, around the heart and back again. And when you take an adult giraffe, this length totals to almost 4 meters. When actually, that nerve should only really take 10 centimeters. So instead of going straight from the voice box to the brain, it goes all the way down around the large heart, around the neck, before it connects the voice box to the brain, which is really phenomenal, I think. And this is because a giraffe's body plan, as unique as it is, was actually established from an ancestor way back that had no neck, or no neck like that at least. They're glorious. Yes, you're correct. Well done. Good contribution. Just like humans having a tailbone. And it's just imperfections along the lines of natural selection. Natural selection can't be perfect all the time. Nothing's perfect. So every species, every organism has imperfections. And that's one of the main imperfections with giraffes. Their ancestor did not. Well, they had a neck. Of course they had a neck, but not a neck like this. Not a long neck. And therefore, that's why this special nerve takes a bizarre route that can lay out to a distance of 4 meters rather than just 10 centimeters. It's just been an imperfection, a compromise from nature. The evolution of a giraffe's very long neck. So, because that sun is starting to go down, it's golden hour, I think it's time to race to my blondie. But we're going to send you guys across to a very cute little cub.
So there's one that one of the lions actually came past the vehicle and picked up, it looks like a bit of skin and bone. It's now moved off, probably to find a nice quiet place to go and feed off of it. But what's really interesting is, so earlier on we saw one of the cubs moving past the carcass, but both the youngsters, which, they're not even 4 months old, are currently feeding off the carcass. Remember we said, like lions, especially the youngsters, can start from 2 months. But look at how small that little cub is. And it's actually pushing his head quite deep into the carcass to get little chunks of meat. You can see there's quite a lot of spots still on the head. And also I'm hoping that this one will move out a little bit. There's another one, so but because of the two, so the brother and the sister, so I think it was the brother early on that actually ventured and crawled into the rib cage while the sister was feeding off to the side there. But I think they might have changed positions. And I think often with especially young cubs, they have to be so careful around a carcass. But I think also the mother was probably very smart with them. As soon as everyone had their fair share of a meal, she probably brought them a little bit closer. And of course, she'll also be lying down right there to make sure that they are safe. So, Katie, some of the animals that could potentially head this way after the kill would be something like a black-backed jackal. They're very opportunistic, and of course, if there's any little bit of scrap that's left, they'll grab it and then take it. And then, of course, hyenas will venture off here a little bit later. There's also a good chance, I mean, with the vultures now, it is getting late, and vultures don't really fly at night. So I think mainly this will open up an opportunity for possibly any of the others. So this morning we saw another male lion, that's probably the similar age to the Birmingham young male, and he might even come and try and scavenge a little bit off this kill eventually if the pride leaves. But I think if the Ross males are somewhere nearby, he might not dare to come near at all, especially also knowing that there are some cubs around. But I think hyenas are going to be the main ones. As soon as the pride leaves this, they'll come in. But if the pride decides to stay here, not even the jackal would venture off close to the lions. They might, even if there's some scraps laying on the outskirts, they might go grab the scraps and then move from there. But you can notice even the ribs, we were talking about earlier that the lions don't really waste a lot. So everything that they can possibly chew and digest is they'll take that. You'll even notice some of the ribs, the softer part of the ribs have been chewed by these lions. But of course the hyenas are capable of breaking the bigger bones and even the teeth of this particular buffalo carcass. So we just want to have a look. I think I can't see from my angle here, but it does look like this one that's feeding now. You'll notice that the eye looks like there's a bit of a scar on that eye. Also, you can see a bit of pink. I wonder, like mentioning earlier, maybe if there's a chance of claw might have caught it, maybe it could be something else, but we'll try and see if we can find out what it is. But in the meantime, while we do that, let's head across to Mike. Apparently he has a dazzles. That's my favorite animal. Let's head.
So here we've got some dazzling zebra. It's a male and a female. So the male is the one closer to us, and the female is the slightly smaller one. Oh, he's very rambunctious. He was just sniffing her urine. She just urinated. Oh, she doesn't like that. Hey, buddy, calm down. And then he did a phlegmon, which is where he might do it again. Watch this. So he's smelling the urine, and then he lifts his nose up, and you'll see him bare his teeth in a grin, and that's him pumping the scent of the urine to find out what the reproductive status of this female is. There, see, look at that. Oh yeah. So he's, I think, deciding that he quite likes this female, or maybe not, I don't know. Maybe this is part of the courtship, a lot of rubbing and playing and touching, and then eventually she might allow him to mount her. But it's wonderful to see. Actually, you don't often get to see such amazing interaction between zebras. It's a very big open clearing called impala clearings here on Pride Lands, which was rehabilitated, so you can see the animals really enjoy it. And these zebra especially have been spending a lot of time in these open clearings. I mean, it's wonderful for them. They can spot danger from far away. They can feed on all this lovely grass, can gallop around, just like this male is doing right now. I think he's showing off. Look at that little canter. Oh, so regal. What a distinguished gentleman. I think he's just prancing about for this female, trying to impress her. So there's only one other zebra, which is the female. So this male might be quite young and hasn't yet managed to capture a full harem, which is what we call it when a male has many females. So perhaps he's young and he's just managed to somehow steal this female away from her natal herd, or the herd that she was born into, and now he's trying to impress her to get her to stay with him. I mean, once he's mated with her, and if she bears offspring with him, she'll generally stay with him for the rest of his life, or as long as he can hold on to them. I mean, if you look when he gets next to her, he's much bigger than her, so she wants to stay with him because he offers her protection. There's also some wildebeest around here enjoying the show. So Caitlin has asked a very good question. When is birthing season? So generally speaking, it seems like a lot of animals give birth around the beginning of the spring. Oh, look at that gallop. Very fast. Oh, and gone. And there goes the female as well. going off behind us. Amazing how quickly they can run. So, Caitlin, zebras and most other antelope or most other herbivores will give birth around November, December, and that's when the peak is. But of course, there can be random births throughout the year. So I would say they will be giving birth around November, December. The wildebeest definitely around the springtime. You often see hordes of babies being born, as well as the impalas, and most of the other ungulates will be giving birth around then. All the animals are galloping off up this hill here. Maybe being close to the drainage line behind them is a bit worrying when it starts getting darker or closer to evening. What I'm going to do is just turn us around a little bit so that we can have a look at these animals as they move behind us. It's a wonderful light actually at the moment, and they might just be moving away from the edge of the clearing, going more towards the center or the top of the clearing, where they might be able to spot danger a bit easier, because we know there's a leopard that moves around this area quite a lot, and if that leopard is stalking anywhere near the edges, the fringes of this can be worry for them. And there's also been lions through this area. I think the lions just headed north into another property, so we're going to hope that they're going to come back soon. But if they went out in this area, it will be something that these animals will be very, very conscious of. Can you still see them, Gerrit? Gone that side. Okay, I'm going to try and move us just ever so gently to get us around. Well, whilst I get myself into a position to watch these beautiful animals, we'll send you over to the Mountain Pride.
Well, these lions are still just resting up on top of these rocks here. And now we can actually only see one of the little cubs. But at one stage just now, about 3 or 4 of them came out to the edge of the rock there. But they've just gone over the lip again back. Just on top of the rocks there. And it's quite funny, often in the afternoons we see baboons sitting up on the top of these rocks. But obviously with the lions here now, these baboons are not going to be anywhere close. They're going to have found somewhere else to rest tonight. Oh, that lioness has passed right out. Dizzy, those rhinos we saw, I wouldn't call it a baby. It was already quite big. It was probably in the region of 2.5 years old or so, possibly even pushing on 3 years old. So no, it would be way too big for these lions, especially because, you know, with the whole pride, they might have a slight chance because there's 4 lionesses and 2 males in the whole pride. But with these small cubs, it's just 2 of the lionesses, so they are together just by themselves. So no, they have almost no chance against a big rhino like that. Also, there were 4 of them, remember? So yeah, they wouldn't. I'm sure the lions would have actually seen the rhinos from up here. They've got amazing eyesight, and as I said, the rhinos weren't too far away. But I don't think they definitely wouldn't have done anything, especially not with full bellies like they have now. Oh, it looks like even the young one is now lying down and resting. You can imagine now how these rocks have absorbed all the heat from the day, and now that the sun is down and there's a bit of a chill in the air, it must still be so nice and warm up on those rocks. And these lions have, since these cubs were small, they have made a lot of use of this one mountain in particular. There's another one that they've been spending a lot of time on as well. And it's just a good safe spot for the cubs. Nice and high up. Good vantage point as well. Yeah. Apparently everyone's nervous about the cub being so close to the edge. But, oh, there's actually two more climbing up just below that one cub. It was just on the left of the screen. They were climbing up the, almost, there we go. See, he's running back now. Well, from our lion cubs here, and cubs that have started to join the feast.
So I'm just going to try and be quiet so you can hear the noises around the carcass, but look at how this lion is basically snarling at the others. So right there on the back of the horns, it looks like this lioness has actually managed to open the back part of the, either it could be the brains, or maybe it's just a bit of fat that's around the neck, like joining up with the head. You can see it's actually trying to pull out something there. See how this one that's off to the left is carefully trying to grab hold. It looks like this female is so into that she's not really caring too much about it. What I want to do is, so while she's feeding there, just look off to the left. The young cub is also now trying to tear off a little piece of the rib. Trish, when lion cubs are born, they have very, very small teeth. But only like once they get to around about 2 months is when it's like razor sharp and able to take little bits, little chunks of meat off. But mainly you also see like they'll try and cut it with the back part of their teeth. The way that they maneuver, it's almost like they call it the carnassial shear. So the back part of the mouth is probably where they're going to be the strongest as well as the sharpest in order to cut meat. You can see that little one is maneuvering its jaw to try and get to those back teeth so it can cut a little bit off. But sometimes the teeth are just not strong enough to do that. So you'll see they'll lick quite a bit. And because of that rough tongue, they're able to lick quite a bit of meat off. And even though, I mean, for this young cub, it's grabbing hold and pulling, and all of this is basically making it stronger. It's helping to develop those neck muscles, the jaw, the front feet as it pushes against the carcass and try and pull it away. See that female's actually just now used the paw just to hold it down as she's tearing away at that, whatever it might be that she's trying to pull off under that horn. I think while we spend some more time with these lions and see if they eventually move into more of an open area and what they're going to be doing from here. But in the meantime, while we are going to be spending some time with them, let's send you across to a beautiful sunset.
We've stopped here for a lovely sunset, which we were hoping to show you, but unfortunately the camera has now malfunctioned once again. I'm just going to quickly smash it to pieces with a stick, and then maybe that'll help. It's still quite pretty. So let's do our Be Quiet for the Evening sunset segment. Here we go. Shh, everybody. Just a few doves calling. A sunbird. Get back across to Lauren and we'll try and fix this camera by running it over.
Now I am following up on baboon alarm calls. Baboons do not like leopards in any way, shape or form. So there's no time to waste. I need to come and investigate before we lose too much light. Just going to turn off, see if we can hear anything. All our lions are accounted for. The Nkuhumas, the Avokas and the Talamatis. So it has to be a leopard. So sometimes you just have to turn off your engine and listen. Okay, this is Gallagher Pan, one of the permanent water sources.
Nigel, for sure.
That a lot of the predators will visit in winter, but not just right now. There's far too many other pans of water. So I'm just going to go this way. Baboons and monkeys will alarm call, but they have really, really great visual capacities. So what that means is they can see very, very far. So when they're alarm calling, it isn't always completely obvious where the threat is. But we're losing light. I think James just showed you a beautiful sunset. So I want to try and cover the area up just before it gets a little bit too dark. The last leopard I got to see was in Sele. A leopard from the west. It's not normally around here. Oh, a little diker. Oh, no, okay. We're not playing today. But many of you watched me the other day with a diker that looked rather bizarre. BK and I saw it again today. It's in the same place at Treehouse Dam, and it has a broken horn. It has a tuft of hair, a normal horn, and then a slightly skewed, squint, broken horn. And that's why it looks so bizarre. So that male seems to frequent the area, and he's not that shy. But that's what's wrong with these horns. It took me a while to figure it out, but thank you everybody for sending me screenshots. I really do appreciate it. Okay, I'm going to try really, really hard to find out what's causing these baboons to alarm call. And as I do that, we're going to send you back across to Dylan and see what he's looking at.
We've just gone from lions on a kill to these absolute beauties. And why I'm so excited about finding these tiny little flowers, I wish somehow there was a way that I could impart the scent of these flowers through this camera so you could all smell it wherever you're sitting, because it is the most incredible, sweet, beautiful scent. You get very, very few scents like this in the outdoors, and it is just unbelievable. And for something so small, it was very, very funny. So we're driving along and we get this this scent just drifting across, over the vehicle. We're like, oh, no, these flowers, we've got to go look for them. So we jump off up and down and nothing. So we get back on the vehicle and there's the scent again. And, there's a bit of a breeze, but the scent is so delicate and fine that we took a little bit of time. We eventually had to track it down. And look how tiny each of these flowers is. So this plant is called wild asparagus. And it is actually related to asparagus. You can eat the shoots of it. But the scent, like I say, I just wish there was some way of being able to communicate the essence of the scent across space and time to you, because it is mind-blowing. And it just shows, you come out here and you're on a lion kill. At one stage you've got this big stinky eland carcass, and next thing you've got this most delicate fragrance on the air. That's what I love about this. It's just everything. Every corner you go around, there's something new, something interesting to see. Shaggy Dog has just asked a good question regarding plant scents. He's saying, is this a kind of wild jasmine or jasmine that we get in this area? It's not. This one's not even related to jasmine, and the scent, in fact, is almost more delicate. There's no way for me to describe it. Maybe I must try pen it, write it down, but I don't think I'll get that right. We do actually have one plant here, and some of you may have been with us on that drive when we saw it. It's called wild jasmine, and as we go into the summer months, those flowers are going to be out, and they are also incredibly scented. That is very much the typical jasmine scent that most of us know. This is on a different level altogether. And the incredible thing is, look how tiny these flowers are. What I'd like to know now, though, is why have they got such an incredible scent in the middle of winter and there's so few pollinators around? There has to be a very, very, very good reason for that. I say there's no pollinators around, but I'm willing to bet that there will be something that will be pollinating this, especially the fact that it's got, oh my word, here we go. Here's something pollinating here. We're going to come back to this. All right, I'm just going to look for a better example and we'll be right back.
So one of the lionesses just got up and started moving right in front of us in the vehicle. Let's just see if she eventually heads back to the carcass, but it does look like she needed a bit of a break, so that's why she moved off to the side. It does look like it's the mother of the two young cubs. See, see where she heads off. She's basically just left the cubs at the back. She might just decide to go and lie down somewhere. Just have a look. Oh, there we go. You can see the rest of the pride. There's one of the older females of the pride. You can see her like full belly, panting quite a bit. And then a few of the younger ones are now feeding at the back. Now, they've probably had quite a bit to eat, and now, of course, there's a bit of space. So now moving closer to see if there's any last little bit they can get. Because they're so opportunistic, they're just trying to get as much as they possibly can off this carcass before they have to eventually move off. Because I can think the next step for them from here on will probably to start heading down to water for a good drink. So with the carcass even, there's quite a bit of flies around. And of course, with the carcass being around and all the flies, you can see it definitely bothers the lions. You can just see the flies moving and also their tail. Now apparently, like these lions are all lying down at the moment, or some of them, apparently Dylan at Tswalu Kalahari are also down close to the ground. So let's go and have a look.
Okay, we're getting like really excited here. We're getting the most minuscule, okay, genre, there's one here. Getting the most minuscule little flies and things coming onto these flowers. Can you see this one over here? I'm just going to go slowly towards it there. This is so ridiculously exciting, it's not even funny. Can you see it there, Genre? That these things are crazily small, and yet they're going for all the anthers. All these little yellow things sticking up are the anthers, so that's where the pollen's been carried. And these tiny, tiny, tiny little, I mean, these things are like 2 millimeters, not even 2 millimeters long. And they're going for these things. That's why these plants have got the scent out now. That's exactly why they're putting it out. So these little guys can get onto it and they can start doing the pollination process. Oh, this is what it's about, eh? Really, really incredible. And the fascinating thing is, like, yeah, we are in the middle of winter, and these plants are still giving it horns in terms of getting this pollination process underway. What that means is they're going to be like really at an advantage going into summer. They're going to be out there with their little seed capsules, throwing out tons of these little seeds for their new next generation. Eh? Wow. And just like how delicate these flowers are is off the charts. And you can't believe that something so fine, so delicate persists in this environment in these harsh times. Wow. Wow. I hope you got to see those little things, because I mean, it's incredibly difficult. I mean, Genre is, I'm just going to say it, so he's doing a great job with getting this footage, I promise you. Yeah, so we're just going to sit a little bit longer and see what else we can find here.
So you might just hear in the background there's quite a few guinea fowl that are going crazy, and I think one of them, or a couple of them, might have spotted a lion. So I'll just be quiet and you can listen. So the bird that we're currently looking at is a white-backed vulture, and so you'll see there's quite a few of them around the trees, and this is one way that we can definitely tell if there's a kill nearby made by potential predators, with all the vultures sitting up in the trees. And I think for them, as it starts to get a bit cooler now, so that one that we see there is the hooded vulture. You'll notice the beak is quite different in comparison to the whiteback. And also, just so that everyone knows, so we have moved into IR, so infrared mode. The reason being is because it is getting darker and darker, especially where we are now. So we were not able to show these beautiful images, so that's why we went into infrared, just to be able to show you a better image. You might hear that noise in the background. So those are from guinea fowls, but just to show you that the ones here with the longer bills, of course, the hooded vulture, and then the one with the stronger, heavier bill, the one that's actually at the very top of that tree, trying to balance itself now. So that's the white-backed vulture. And there's 5 different vulture species we do get in the area. And this is probably the most abundant one. So what I want to do is, there's quite a few noises here. So of course is the guinea fowl, that very sharp krr, krr, krr that you're hearing. You might hear the vultures as they move and try and reposition themselves on the branches. There might be a lot of crackling noises. And of course the lions just off to our left here on the side of the vehicle, crunching away at some bones. Let's listen. So I think while we still enjoy these beautiful noises, we're going to send you back to Clive, who's apparently spotlighting.
Yes, we do have our spotlight out, Nikki. And we're back on andBeyond Phinda Private Game Reserve. And we left those lions just now because they were fast asleep on the rocks. They definitely weren't going to come down. We couldn't see any of the cubs anymore. So let's leave. There's a small little grey daker there. We're not going to shine the light on him. We thought we would come out and try and find some nocturnal animals tonight. Now, as you know, the spotlight really helps on the reflection of their eyes. So, bad spot here with the signal, so we're going to send you back across to where the lions are feasting on that carcass.
So all the noises are just so amazing. So just to give everyone an idea, so it is starting to get a little bit darker now. As we mentioned earlier, that's where we went into infrared, but now there's all these night sounds that are slowly starting to emerge. You can hear some of the last birds making their calls and then moving off to probably settle in for the evening. You're hearing the guinea fowl still there, and of course these lions crunching away. But there's also this nice cool breeze that is now starting to channel down into this little system that we are sitting in at the moment. You might even hear some Natal spurfowls in the background as well. See that? There's one just at the back trying to pull a little bit. There might be some little bits of pieces of meat still attached to the ribs, and that's what it's trying to tear off. So George, there are with some of the vultures. I mean, if you compare the white-headed vulture against or let's say the white-headed vulture, the lappet-faced vulture, as well as the Cape and white-back, you'll find that there would be quite a bit of competition amongst them. But the hooded vultures, they are the ones that are solely reliant on trying to get in between the bones. So their beaks aren't really designed to tear big chunks of meat off the carcass. So they need to really focus on the little bits and pieces. And so each vulture, I mean, in terms of the bigger ones and the smaller ones, has a specific role. But I think there would be more competition amongst the bigger vultures, so the lappet face, as we mentioned, the white-back, the Cape vulture, as well as the white-headed vulture. And in some way, if the carcass is small enough, they'll even outcompete the hooded vultures that won't be able to get any of those scraps. So you do find that, though, that there could be competition amongst all of them. Now, it'd be interesting to know, like, as we're sitting down here, of course, we can only see the lions. But on our way here, we saw quite a few black-backed jackals on the outskirts, and I wonder the hyenas might not be too far away from here. And of course, because of the pride being so big, the chances are that the hyenas won't really come close, unless, of course, we can start hearing them calling, and maybe there could be others that join up. But unfortunately, or I think fortunately for the lions, that there's not a lot of big clans of hyenas that join up together here that will try and steal the scraps.
The moon has finally entered into the first quarter at 42.1%. Yes, it's my favorite app that I have on my phone. I don't have many, but it's still my favorite. Now we're just here on quarantine. No luck with tracking anybody, but quarantine's a really, really good place to be. All the impala and a waterbuck, funnily enough, are down at the western edge, which is quite interesting. Sometimes you can actually tell the movements of predators from the movements of the prey. If there's been a predator on the western side, all the impala, wildebeest, apparently waterbuck, will move to the eastern side and vice versa. So everybody's down here on the sort of southwest side. Where did our waterbuck go? Ah, there we have it. You can't miss that bottom. Male waterbucks really don't stray too far from water, so I wonder if this male, his sort of territorial water point, may be Gowrie Dam. You can see the size difference between the waterbuck and the impala. It's quite drastic. I am convinced there's a leopard somewhere in the area. It could be in the drainage at the minute, but as the sun is starting to set, nighttime is almost here, I think they're going to appear. Cannon, it depends what you mean. If we come out in our vehicles at night time, it's not dangerous. It's obviously dark. You have to have your lights on and a spotlight, but it's not dangerous. We used to do a lot of nighttime safaris in the past, but of course on foot, that's a whole different ballgame. You would not go anywhere outside of camp on foot. Once that, even this time, it's not dark yet. This is sort of the sun going down. Dusk, you wouldn't be allowed. This is far too dangerous because your vision is compromised. Humans are really not well adapted to low light conditions. We're diurnal beings, and our sort of body clock from way back in the day of the cavemen, we're awake and active during the day, and we go to sleep at night. So this low light condition definitely, we call it crepuscular, plays havoc with my eyes. It takes a while to adjust. So it'd be really, really dangerous if we were to step out on foot at night time. Of course, once it gets dark, it really is the time for the predators. That's when your lions wake up, your leopards wake up, hyenas will start to get mobile. Dogs will not. Dogs are diurnal, and they've got a pack of wild dogs right now at Jacana Dam. I don't know what pack it is, I'm afraid. And that'll be the dogs getting ready to settle down for the night. But the other predators that we get here are nocturnal. And that's why the waterbuck is staying with the impala. That's why all the antelopes and herbivores start to come together, group together. It's not altruistic. It's not because they care about one another. It's actually quite selfish. If I huddle up with everybody else, then it's less likely going to be me that the predator chooses. More eyes, more ears, more nostrils. Everyone can be on high alert. And I'm sure this waterbuck can definitely benefit from the alarm calls of impala. Although impala are diurnal, they do have good night vision. Not as good as the predators, but they can see well at night time. Far better than we can. Look at that glorious sunset over there, beaks more to the western side. You can see that orange sky. Now, of course, we are nearing the end of the safari, but still do send in your comments and questions. I look forward to hearing them using the hashtag WildEarth. Look at that. You can see the colours slowly melt into one another. We've got yellow, amber, pink, purple, blue. Let's take a listen. Sheila, you're saying what a beautiful sunset to make your day a calm one. I'm glad you have a calm and beautiful day, Sheila. I'm sending good vibes your way. It really is common. Okay, I'm really convinced there's a leopard somewhere. Whether I'm going to be able to find it or not, I'm not sure, but I'm going to try. And while I do that, we're going to send you over to some cute little lion cubs in infrared.
So with the lions, they haven't moved too much. You can see the one's just moved around, but look at how big that belly is. So it looks like one of the young males. And probably finished most of the meat on this side, so decided to go around. Remember earlier we saw them trying to tear little bits of meat from behind the horn, I think, or just underneath it. So I think both of those are now trying for it. But look at all the others, big bellies, soft little bit of grass. It's a good time for them just to rest up a little bit. Look at how they're panting. So imagine all that meat, and there's not too much space. So all that is pushing against the diaphragm, and because of that, it makes them short of breath. So that's why they're panting so heavily. And the rest of the pride haven't even moved. Like the grass next to us, you can see a few of the pads up. You won't be able to see it with the camera now, but now and then you do see a bit of the grass moving right next to us. And all these other ones have just been lying down and have not even moved. But there's still some action around that carcass. I'm just going to be quiet so you can hear some of the noises. the little cub decided to come and join in again. So we're going to spend, I think what we'll do here is we'll spend the whole rest of the drive here and see if there's any changes or what happens over the next couple of minutes. But I think while we do that, let's send you across to Dylan, who apparently has an ostrich.
We have an incredibly good sighting here. And this was spotted by Genre. Now that view that you're seeing there is pretty much what we're seeing now with the naked eye. Okay, and to give you some idea of just how good the spotting was, look at this. Wait for it. Wait for it. Wait for it. Da-dun, 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 da-dun. There we go. Look at that. Look at that. Genre, this is your prize, my man. It's an adult female ostrich. And I think the fact that it's lying down now at this time of day, it may actually be sitting on eggs. I'm saying it's a female, but actually I'm looking at that. Is that a greyback or a brownback? It's black, so that's a male. That's a male ostrich. And the fact that he hasn't moved yet, okay, we are sitting at 50 yards from him, 50 meters, give or take, and but the fact that he hasn't budged tells me he's almost certainly on a nest over there. And this is incredibly exciting because if we can keep on returning to the spot over the coming weeks, there may even be an opportunity of seeing these little ones just after they've hatched out. It'll be a tiny, tiny, tiny chance, but it's a chance nonetheless. So this is incredibly exciting, and it's just, you don't see ostriches like this normally. I mean, you do, but they're normally kind of in the distance, but to see one hiding like this is fantastic. Very, very, very good spotting on every level there. I mean, look at that camouflage. That's a big bird, eh? That's a 150, 160 kilogram bird, and it's just hiding there pretty much in the open with a bit of scraggly grass and some dead shrubs to the side of it. But what's particularly interesting about this, if it is a nest, and I'm not saying it is 100%, but if it is on a nest, many people say, well, the males are black because they only incubate the eggs at night, and the females incubate the eggs in the day. That is not true whatsoever. There's no basis for that. You can get them both incubating at different times. But I'm pretty sure this bird's on a nest. And the female will be somewhere around, but not necessarily close by. And Genre and I were actually chatting about ostriches the other day, because we've been seeing different groups of them, but you're typically seeing a male with a number of different females. So there's a very strong likelihood of us actually locating other nests now. And but what's quite fun about those nests is you actually get an alpha female, a dominant female. Let's not call it an alpha. You get a dominant female within a territory, and then the dominant male. But a number of other females within that area will also lay their eggs in this female's, or in the dominant female's nest. So you can get an ostrich nest there with 20 or 30 eggs in it, but only being looked after by one male and one female. That's crazy. You think, oh, what's the point? There's a very, very good reason for that, is that because she lays her eggs first and the other females lay their eggs afterwards, it means that their eggs, in other words, the females that lay after that, their eggs run the highest risk of being predated on or not getting enough cover during the incubation process so they can get cold. And what that means is that her youngsters have got the greatest likelihood of hatching, and even greatest likelihood of hatching first. I'm just so excited that we got this. Genre, 100% brilliant, awesome job there, man. Jeez. we're going to actually leave it now because this is kind of regarded as a sensitive sighting. It's a bird on a nest. So I think we're going to move on and just see what else we can find before the close of day. Well done.
We have a spider here that is called a bark spider. Now this is pretty incredible. It's actually busy constructing its web for the night. You'll see it's going down to that blade of grass and it's just strengthening these like anchor lines for its web. It's really incredible. So it's probably quite hard to get a scale of how big this spider is, but it's probably twice as big as my thumbnail, if that makes sense. Now it's quite an interesting little spider. During the day, what it does is it actually is, well, okay, let's go the other way around. From this time of the evening, it goes out and spins its web, and by the time the morning comes and the sun is out, to stop animals constantly walking through it and him having to rebuild it, he actually almost eats the whole web back up and recycles that silk again so that he can use it the following night. And then he moves up to the tree, and you can probably even see his colors a little bit through the camera. It's like a gray and white dark color. And he goes up onto the bark of the tree and he sits there for the day, and you really cannot see him. He is so well camouflaged into the bark of the tree. This is pretty amazing just watching him spinning his web though. Megan, yes, the spider does look like a crab. It's got those little like pincers in the front. I agree. I'm sure some of you are wondering if it's a venomous spider or not, but no, it's not. It's not that I'm planning on it. I don't particularly touch spiders, but they are they're not venomous, so you could even pick it up and touch it. Not that I'm going to. I don't want to disturb him. He's very happily building his web here for the night. So as it's stretched out between the grass and this tree up above here, it's going to catch all sorts of different moths and other insects that are flying around at night. So he's got himself a really good spot here. Amazing to see how quickly he moves and does this as well. Samantha, you don't want the spiders in your space. I think I'm probably fairly similar to that as well. I don't hate them at all, but I'm not a huge fan. But it's really beautiful to watch them like this. I also, respect them in their role in the ecosystem. It's a good way to put it.
I love them in my room because they charm mosquitoes.
Marcel says he actually likes them in his room because they eat all the mosquitoes. I guess that is a very good point. So it's also nice to stop and listen at this time of the night. All the normal birds and all the normal sounds that you hear during the day are gone. And now you start with all the night sounds. Striped horses, yes. The spider, anything, listen, unless it's really, really small, maybe he won't waste his time, or she actually, should I say. But any decent sized insect that lands in there, he will definitely eat up, that's for sure. This is really amazing to watch. He's almost going from each different strand of silk and joining them together. That's just kind of what it looks like here anyway. It's hard to see, isn't it? Actually, it's hard to even see which is the front. Okay, no, it's not. Yes, well done, Marcel. Everyone's commenting on your camera work, but and I saw, especially as soon as we found it and got the light on him and started filming, he was going straight up and down from the tree down to the grass, and he was moving quite quickly. And I was watching Marcel trying to keep him in the frame, and he did very well. I would have, if it was me behind the camera, you would probably be looking at some blurred picture of a leaf.
Don't undersell yourself.
Boozy Susie, you're asking how strong is the web. There are other spiders that have extremely strong webs. You can, especially the golden orb family, those webs are so strong that they can even catch small birds. These spiders, not as strong, but they're still strong enough to catch the size insects that they will be eating. So it's plenty strong enough. But if you had to walk through it, which happens a lot when you're out walking in the bush, it just breaks. But those golden orb spider webs are so strong that when you walk into it, like you can feel the pressure of that strand of web that's hitting into you. They're very, very strong. Penelope, no, these spiders will do exactly the same web each time. Not exactly the same, but the same kind of shape. And the shape of it depends on the species of spider. So the bark spiders always spin a web that looks just like this, not that you can really see too much of it. And then you get some spiders that dig a hole, like a burrow down into the ground, and they always look the same. You get others that will spin a web with little trip lines coming out of a hole in the tree. You get spiders that spin a web that looks like a tent. They're literally called tent web spiders. So you get a lot of different types of webs, but each species will spin the same type of web. This has been really amazing to watch, but I think I'm going to take this red filter off the light and let's carry on driving and see what else we can find. While we get ready and carrying on seeing what other animals we can find, let's send you back off to the lions.
So there's quite a few that have now moved a bit closer towards this carcass. It's been interesting to see if they're going to tolerate each other. And you can see the cubs are also in the mix, moving around, walking over some of the others. Might just see, I saw earlier on one of the cubs. There we go, right there. Actually, both of them are right next to that. I'm just trying to see if that's possibly the mom. It's just so dark. Oh, it does look like it might be one of the other youngsters. Let's see where this young cub is off to. Maybe it goes back to the carcass. Might just go and find mom. But I think the carcass might be a better option. Kruger, I have seen, I don't know if it was associated with overeating, but I have seen lions eating so much and just trying, because it was either there was a lot of competition, to just basically grab anything it could and just like ate as fast as possibly could. Eventually they have quite a bit of an upset stomach because of that, and eventually they'll vomit from there. So I have seen that before, but I don't know if it's from overeating. I'm happy to hear possibly some of our viewers have seen it before, heard about it. I'd love to know. I'm sure it is possible. And also in that case, I didn't know as it was because it was just grabbing everything it possibly can, and because of that it had an upset stomach, or was it just because it just tried to indulge as quickly and as much as it possibly could, and then vomited from there? And this is just such an interesting scene. I think even for us, after spending a bit of time here, the more and more time we spend, the more we realize there's so much actually happening, because earlier on a few of the lions were just lying down on the side, and now they started getting a bit closer. We can even see off to the right, which is hard to see because there's quite a few trees in the way, but I don't think it's going to be too long before maybe some of them come to investigate to see how much meat are going to be left around this carcass. Now I think, based on their behavior and where they've been spending the whole day, and also the amount of meat that's left on the carcass, I think by this evening or later on in this evening, they might start moving and potentially heading down to a waterhole to go and drink. But you can see, of course, in a really dense area, and the water is not too far from here. It might even be where they're going to a waterhole, go and drink, and they might just decide to lie down there for the while. The little one, of course, he's not too camera shy. So definitely from here on, we'll spend another few minutes with the rest of the pride. And just see, as I said, like often this is a really good opportunity just to interpret a lot of behavior and also learn a lot from these lions as well as their behavior. It's really been such an amazing afternoon. And I think all across, I'm sure I can speak for all the rangers all across the different reserves. It has been a beautiful afternoon. The weather's been really favorable to us as well. And of course, these beautiful animals never fail to present themselves, even the little things that we don't always see on drive. But I think from all our side, from all the rangers from across the different reserves, we just want to say thank you so much for watching, and hopefully tomorrow morning we'll be able to see you for our morning show.